That set the tone for some energy tonight. Love it. Is there a supplementary agenda?
No, there is not.
Disclosures of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, for open session agenda items and the general nature thereof. Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you. Item 14A, Physician Recruitment and Retention Initiatives. I'm an employee of the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance.
Okay, item 9, planning.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The process for each application tonight will be as follows. 1, the clerk will announce the item. 2, the mayor will ask if there is anyone present other than the applicant or their agent with an interest in the item, and to indicate so by raising their hand. 3, individuals or their agent present with an interest in the item other than the applicant will be asked to proceed to the podium, provide their name and address, and address council. 4, council will be asked if it has any questions of each presenter and then the applicant. 5, administration will be asked if they have any comments based on any discussion that may have occurred. And 6, council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. If there is no one present indicating an interest in the item, there will be no presentation by administration, and council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. If any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect of the proposed application does not make oral or written submissions to the municipal clerk before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons receiving a notice of this meeting will receive a notice of passing of a bylaw relating to any of the items presented here tonight if approved, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of passing or a notice of council's decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk.
9A, applications for consent and removal of the H holding symbol 1486134 Ontario Limited, 110 Queen Street South, Community of Tilbury, West Kent.
Is the applicant his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move this.
Councillor Harrigan.
I'll second the recommendation.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. Next agenda item, 9B, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, 1815513 Ontario Inc., 11 Oxley Drive, Community of Chatham City.
Is the applicant his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor B. McGregor.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Finn.
I'll second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. 9C, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Clark Developments Corporation, Inc., 74 to 146 Even, Moonstone Crescent, Community of Chatham City.
Is the applicant his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. No one noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Crew.
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
I'll second. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. 9D, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Minor Legion Villa, Senior Citizen Corporation, and Villa View Community Corporation, 330 Catherine Street and 45 Margaret Street South, Community of Blenheim, South Kent.
Is the applicant his or her agent present? If so, please raise your hand. Noted. Is there anyone present other than the applicant who wishes to speak to this application? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, what action would council like to take with regard to this application? Councillor Thompson?
Happy to move the recommendations.
Councillor Latimer?
Happy to second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Just you. Mayor Caniff, just you. All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Consideration of a proposed declaration of surplus land and subsequent disposition for a portion of property along Churchill Park Road. The property being considered to be declared surplus legally described as part of Lot 56, Registrar's Compiled Plan 771, Part 1 and 2 on Reference Plan 24R10579, being part of property identification number 00524-0267. During the week of October 28, 2019, a notice of intention to declare the above noted property as surplus was published in the Chatham-Kent This Week newspaper for a one-week period, and October 22, 2019 on the municipal website. I will now invite any person wishing to be heard to approach the podium and give reasons why this land should not be declared surplus and subsequently disposed for redevelopment. Seeing none, what would council like to do? Councillor Crew?
Move the recommendations.
Councillor Finn?
Happy to second.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 11, deputations.
This evening, Council, we have two deputations. Both are on the same report of 15B, the motion of Councillor Sakachi regarding tree cover in Chatham-Kent. I'll remind both speakers that you have a maximum of 5 minutes and there will be a timer on the screen. First speaker is Alan Jackson. On deck is Louis Rush. Is Mr. Jackson here? No? Okay, we'll move on to Mr. Rush.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Caniff, Council, and Municipal Staff. The Ontario Federation of Agriculture and the Kent Federation of Agriculture are in full support of tree planting in Chatham-Kent. We welcome and support the initiatives for planting windbreaks, reforestation of conservation-owned lands, and urban centers. We also support the planting of trees on rural parcels too small for today's large farming equipment. The implementations of regulations for grass buffer strips along all waterways will not work. The land composition across Chatham-Kent is extremely varied. It consists of heavy, impermeable clay soils, all the way to porous, unstable sand. Each one of these soil types and land contours require different soil type preservation methods. Once again, with the high price of land, small profit margins, voluntary soil management is on every farmer's mind. They will do what they must to keep the soil locked in place. In areas where this is difficult to manage, provincial and municipal support would speed up this process. Chatham-Kent is envied by many provincial municipalities for the working relationship that we have here with our municipality, Lower Thames Conservation Authority, the Ministry of the Environment, and Chatham-Kent farming community. We should be proud that Chatham-Kent was out front with supporting the Great Lakes Phosphorus Reduction Initiative program. With science-based data, this initiative will eventually reduce the algae bloom in Lake Erie. Not only did Chatham-Kent put in the largest financial contribution in the Lower Thames watershed to initiate the program, we also have the first drainage system to collect science-based data to remove the phosphorus before it enters the waterway. We support any tree planting initiative as long as we do not touch our Chatham-Kent tree policy that has been used and copied by other municipalities to resolve their tree issues that support everyone. Let's stay out in front and be recognized for what we can accomplish in Chatham-Kent with everyone working together. Thank you.
One more time, is Mr. Jackson here?
Okay, item 12, consent agenda. Is there any items to remove from the consent agenda and place aside for consideration and debate separately? Councillor Harrigan?
Thank you. Item 12A1.
Okay. Any others? Councillor Hall?
12A2.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept all the other items? Councillor Harrigan? Seconded by Councillor Latimer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Harrigan, item 12A1.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question, likely for Gabriel or Bruce, if they are here. Both here. So the question or the area of clarification I have is regarding Action 3, employ interim climate change lenses in the 2020 budget process. I'm wondering if you can tell me if that's something that's going to be put forward in a report to council, or if that's something that SLT and staff within the municipality will use as a lens in making the budget process.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think, first of all, I'll let Gabriel answer the question, but I don't think Gabriel's actually had an opportunity to be before council, so I'd just like to take this opportunity to introduce Gabriel, who's our environmental planner, has been with us since late June and has been working on this this file since the time he started. So this is kind of the first of a number of series of reports that will be coming to council here in the near term. So I'll turn it over to Gabriel here and let him answer your question.
Thank you, Bruce. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and to the councillor, it would be the second way you've described it. So we would be using the climate lens with our partners in the budget department to review those initiatives that have a mitigation or adaptation potential, and we will provide basically documentation as part of the. In my mind, it would be as part of the budget package, but I may have some additional direction in terms of how it would be communicated back to you.
Great, thank you. I know just personally as a councillor, I would love to see, I think the mitigation, temperature adaptation, and precipitation adaptation are great categories to look in. Mm-hmm. I would be curious to see potential risk areas. So for example, where are we going where maybe procurements or different budget dollars that we're investing are taking us down a path that we don't want to go from an environmentalism standpoint or from a climate action standpoint. So I'm not sure if that could be incorporated, but just some feedback for that.
Yes, and through the mayor and to the councillor, that would be part of the wider climate change adaptation planning process that we'll be undertaking next year.
Fabulous, thank you.
Councillor Latimer?
Yes, thank you to the mayor. Evening, Gabriel. It's nice to meet you. I actually wondered whether or not you were looking at the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative information. They have a number of available protocols, toolkits, and matrices regarding climate protection, readiness, green infrastructure, extreme weather events, and best practice in green economic development. Are you're aware of all those, and we'll be using some of those?
Yes, absolutely. Through the mayor and to the councillor, definitely. Part of Milestone 1 involves a best management practices scan.
Yep.
That includes the Great Lakes and
St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence.
Yes, Cities Initiative.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that one is on my radar, and we are reviewing it.
Yeah, they have excellent resources, and I would encourage you to look into that and bridge with the different partners in that organization, because no need to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you very much.
Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, and through the mayor. I just had a comment. Item number 3 talks about engaging stakeholders and community members. And then down when you start into the comments, it says here, climate emergency declaration administration held a number of meetings. Were these public meetings with stakeholders, or were these staff meetings? And if not, will we be seeing some public and stakeholder meetings?
through the mayor and to the councillor. Those meetings have been internally, or internal meetings in nature to date. So we've met with, the staff from, I've met with staff from the planning department, and we've gone to executive management team a few times to develop this proposed approach.
Okay, and then the last one I have is actually on the final page under consultation. This one says outline was prepared by Community Development Department. Additional work will be forthcoming from Infrastructure and Engineering, Community Human Services, which will be detailed in climate change action plan terms of reference. When these other reports start to come, will we see how changes will be made internally? Like suggestion might be when we're doing our building permits, are we looking at it with the emergency climate lens, or it might be when we are entertaining new business to come to Chatham-Kent, are we looking at it with the emergency declaration or whatever our terms of reference or action plan? Will we see in a further report where this will take place moving forward?
Mr. Shropshire will answer the question.
Thank you, Worship. So Mr. Norton's department with Gabriel and Bruce have done a huge amount of lifting with respect to portions of the climate change agenda. There's going to be a whole other set of work that also will have to be done through Mr. Kelly's department, or infrastructure and engineering. So, for example, we've had numerous discussions about what constitutes a 50-year flood or a 100-year flood, depending on the amount of rainfall we have. How large should we have our drainage system, our stormwater management systems, and so on? That's the type of thing we're referring to. So it's going to be incorporated as part of our engineering studies that HUDA has been working on, and you can expect that would come back in, and we'd be placing that sort of a lens on our future design projects and discussions in front of council in terms of what's required to adapt to our climate change.
So just one final question then, through the mayor to yourself, Don. Will we also see then a report or something from economic development that will also be using that lens moving forward when we're developing our economic growth within Chatham-Kent?
So as I'll start and then see if Mr. Norton would like to add, or Bruce. So we will definitely be looking at a climate change lens on a go-forward basis. So when you look at your infrastructure investments that are required, we certainly have to take some of those things into consideration, and whether that's stormwater management or our storm sewer systems or whatever, that would have to be included within. Bruce may have some additional thoughts to add, or John.
Yeah, thank you, Don, through your worship. I think maybe just for benefit of council, a lot of the details will be coming in the terms of reference work plan of what we're proposing to do. So next meeting, I think you'll see a lot of that detail within the actual work plan itself. We were just trying to quickly give an update that we're working on these things. It'll be here on November 18th with the greater details. Thanks.
Thank you. And the only other thing I would say is welcome, Gabriel.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I didn't really have any questions. I just wanted to say, of course, welcome, Gabriel. It's nice to have you here. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for this update. It's pretty pertinent considering we got word today that Erie Shore Drive again is closed and that Talbot Trail could potentially be closed a long time. So I think this is a good first step, and I'm really looking forward to the November 18th meeting. And I don't have any questions. I think Councillors Harrigan and McGregor pretty much stole my thunder, and good for them. Again, just really looking forward to November 18th. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding 12A1? Councillor Bondi?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Gabriel, welcome. I think we did meet once at some meeting in here about a month ago. Excuse me, my question is, and maybe this is coming on the 18th, and if so, just let me know, and then that will be the answer. But what I'm reading here is that we will use the climate change lenses to be employed during the 2020 budget process. So my question would be, just in practical layman terms, because a lot of this seems kind of fuzzy. You know, we're going to look at things through a lens, and so when it comes to budget primarily, you know, is dollars and cents. So when we're looking at climate change through the budgetary process, is that looking at things like electric cars versus gasoline-powered cars, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we take our budget and apply it to the battling climate change in a dollars and cents way? I know there's ways that we can do things that, well, hopefully, although maybe the specifics are coming on the 18th, but if you could just give me an example of like a budgetary item that would change with this new lens that we're looking through. Thank you.
Are we good now? All right. So through the mayor and to the councillor, it's a very good question. I'm trying to find a tangible example. For example, some of the HVAC equipment with this particular building is old and out of date and in need of replacement. One of the things that the climate lens would enable us to do is look at energy efficiency for the replacement equipment, and to make a determination from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective or climate footprint, what the difference is between the older equipment that we currently use and the newer equipment that we would be replacing it with.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a logical answer. Are we doing things, how are we approaching things differently than we did a month ago before we had declared this climate emergency crisis? Like, I'd like to think we were doing things conscientiously before, so if you could just explain how your new role has brought some enlightenment to the decision-making process.
Well, that is...
That's kind of a hard ball, but, you know.
Shall this be my first and last presentation?
Yeah, I'm famous for it, thanks.
Sorry, apologies. It's a very good question. I mean, one of the things that my background's in community sustainability. So I look at the intersections between environment, economy, social, culture, and governance. I was hired by the municipality of Chatham-Kent to look specifically at the environment, but recognizing that part of the value proposition I suppose I brought to the community was, I guess, experience and skills in those various other sectors as well. So one of the what I'm attempting to do with the climate lens is bring more of a nuanced view to our investments in the long term. So that said, we're trying to balance the need to absolutely limit the impact of our budget on our taxpayers while looking at what our taxpayers are saying on the environment, on the environment, on the social, the cultural, and governance side of things. So I suppose what we're doing right now is we're introducing a process so that as of right now we can start exploring the budgetary process from a climate lens, but as the climate change action planning process goes through its paces, part of what we'll be looking at is how can we fully integrate the values that the community is going to be telling us through the engagement process. How do we fully integrate that into the budget process so that our investments match our residents' long-term values, essentially.
Well done, young man. Thank you.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was particularly interested in your comments that you just made with respect to sustainability and investments. And it would, just one of the things I hope you look at is we have numerous buildings throughout this municipality, some used, some underused, and each one of them in the wintertime, because we live in a cold climate, are heated by a source of heat which is carbon driven. But the fewer buildings we have to heat, the less we reduce our carbon footprint. So I would hope that we'd look seriously at that, because part of, for me, looking at things through a climate lens doesn't mean we have to spend more. In fact, it could and should mean that we'll spend less, and hence taxes don't rise, because we can't afford to pay any more in this community. They're high enough, way too high. So what I hope we would do is look at it through that type of lens, because every time you heat a building, every time you turn lights on, I mean, the electricity doesn't come from, well, most of the electricity doesn't come from Niagara Falls anymore. So there's other sources of it. And every time that you have a building operating, or a generator operating in an arena, all those things add to our carbon footprint. So if we're not fully utilizing them, this should be part of the lens that we look through, at least in my view. And I thought I was taking that from what I heard, which I found very encouraging. Because it's not always about spending more to do these things. It can be about reducing expenses. That's correct.
Seeing no other questions for 12A1, 12A2, Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just very quickly, no questions, but I just wanted to thank staff for the report. I asked for this report, I think, back in the spring after there was a few incidents of mischief and theft, I think, at a few construction sites around Chatham-Kent. So I'm just glad that staff took the time to look into this issue, nail down and determine where the responsibility lies. I'm also encouraged to see that the staff's going to take some extra steps and moving forward to ensure that contractors are aware of any potential issues, especially around, some high traffic pedestrian areas and some of the remote locations as well. But anyway, thank you, Chris, for the report, and I'll move it.
Okay, can I get, for Councillor Harrigan, can I get a motion to accept 12A1 and 12A2?
Yes, so moved.
Councillor Hall, second it. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Notices of motion, number 13. Councillor Sakachi.
I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the November 18th meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas the Tubble Trail Place Blenheim Rotary Park is one of the nicest attributes in the community of Blenheim, and where it's one of the largest attraction areas for thousands of guests to attend the Free Summer Series concert, and whereas the park was constructed by private money and donations, and whereas there are continuous drainage issues within the area, and whereas the gravel causes accessibility concerns for residents that require personal assistance devices, and whereas John Street West has previously been identified for improvements in the near future, be it resolved that administration include as part of the 2020 Municipal Capital Budget Plan the upgrading of the existing gravel on-street parking along John Street West from Chatham Street to Marlborough Street. Upgrading is to include all costs associated with drainage improvements, hard surfacing, line painting, and curb gutter.
Councillor Hall.
Excuse me. I, Councillor Aaron Hall, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the November 18th, 2019 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas multiple community groups and organizations in Wallaceburg have expressed an interest and need for a new space and location in order to fully maximize their goals, and whereas these groups focus on a wide spectrum within the community, including arts, music, seniors, and inclusiveness, and whereas one of Council's strategic priorities is to take a close look at the current facility asset inventory and consider alternative and better uses for these facilities. And whereas the use of public-private partnerships and other partnerships with community groups are ways to move the community forward in a fiscally responsible way, therefore be it resolved that administration investigate and provide options to council about building a new community hub in Wallaceburg or retrofitting an existing building within the community. Consultation with interested community groups, businesses, and organizations will take place and be incorporated into the report. Staff will report back to council by April of 2020.
Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me. I, Councillor Mark Oche, hereby provide notice. I'll bring forward the following motion at the November 18th, 2019 council meeting for discussion and voting, that we rename the trail in Wheatley called Two Creeks Trail to the Grant Bowman Trail under the new naming bylaw. Thank you.
Item 14, Community Human Services.
Item 14A, Physician Recruitment and Retention Initiatives.
Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd be pleased to move the recommendations.
Councillor Thompson.
Honored to second them.
Any questions? Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have any questions but a comment. I'd like to thank the staff for working so diligently on this report. Very nicely done. And I know that there was lots of consultation with the different health, family health teams, and it looks to me that they were well represented, and and that they came up with a pretty good solution to how we're going to spend that money. So I want to thank the family health teams as well as yourself, Evelyn, and the rest of your team for a great job. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I would just like to echo Councillor Foss's comments there. This has been a lot of heavy lifting for staff. It's been a little bit longer than maybe some of us had hoped. I remember we passed this in the previous year around this time. It's been about 10 months, but government moves slowly, and I can appreciate and respect that. I can't undersell how important this is, though, for the residents and communities of Chatham-Kent. And again, just pointing out to council there that the fifth recommendation that ongoing funding for this initiative be referred to the 2021 budget process. That's something to keep in the back of your heads. This very much is money I hope to and expect to see it well spent. Health is your greatest asset, and without it, you have nothing in this world. So this is an important step we're taking for the livelihood and the lifeblood of Chatham-Kent. Thank you.
Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question on this. I see the different alliances that we have in the health teams, but Wheatley's losing their only doctor. Would this be something that could also go to just a small town, or does it have to be with, say, they have to drive the Tilbury to the Tilbury District Family Health Team?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. That would certainly be something that the Thamesview Family Health Team would need to address, since that Wheatley doctor is part of that family health team. But certainly it's very well recognized that that's going to be a potential problem.
If I could, through Your Worship, so would they be able to go to the Tilbury District Family Health Team, since Wheatley to Chatham is quite a difference compared to Wheatley to Tilbury?
I might have to refer to my colleagues here, if you don't mind. This is Shannon Sassfield, and Shannon is with our Lynn.
Oh, you got to push a button there.
There we go. First thing is technology. Thank you very much. Through the mayor to you. And I'm sorry, I was sitting back here. I couldn't see very well who asked the question. Thank you. So a little bit of a primer on how people might be rostered with a family health team. So we're well aware of the situation that's happening in Wheatley, and it is unfortunate, but physicians do retire. And so as vacancies become available at Tilbury Family Health Team, for example, patients could apply in. I think the other thing to look at is, from the Lynn perspective, is what can our neighboring communities, for example, in Leamington, do to help out that situation. Recognize that patients tend to flow that way sometimes, as opposed to coming into Chatham. So as a Lynn, we are looking at capacity in Leamington also, so that people would be able to drive less than coming into than coming into Chatham. However, there does have to be spots available in both of those family health teams. At current, they are both at full capacity. We are looking, though, to see if we can designate Tilbury and possibly Leamington as underserviced, so that they could then have the potential to bring in additional physicians into those family health teams. So hopefully that's helpful. Long-winded answer, and I apologize for that.
No, that's great. Thanks very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Seeing no other questions. Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention I was an observer at the meeting on September the 23rd, and I was actually really impressed with the level of engagement and the degree of collaboration amongst the members of the task force. This is really encouraging. Thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Item 15, Infrastructure and Engineering Services.
Item 15A, Governance Agreement with Metrolinx and Vehicle Purchase.
Councillor B. McGregor.
I'll move the recommendations.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
And I'll second. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 15B, motion by Councillor Sakachi regarding tree cover in Chatham-Kent.
Councillor Scotchy.
Whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent recognizes the significance of tree cover as an important part of a balanced and healthy ecosystem, and whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent has less than 6% natural cover, including trees, wetlands, grasslands, and pollinator habitat, the lowest percentage for any upper-tier municipality in Ontario, and whereas it is important ecologically to reduce fragmentation of such cover and increase wildlife corridors, and wherever possible establish graft buffer strips to keep soil on the land and out of the drains and waterways. And whereas we believe there is a role the municipality can play in partnering and consulting with conservation groups, community partners, and private landowners. Be it therefore resolved that Council direct municipal staff to prepare a report with the aim of planting a minimum of 1 million trees within 4 years, identifying public lands that can be used to support this initiative, identifying best practices from other municipalities on this subject, identifying ways to incentivize landowners to plant and maintain tree cover and other natural habitat, and identifying any potential community partners who can help the municipality achieve its goal. This report is to be prepared for the November 18th meeting of Council.
Councillor B. McGregor.
I'll second that.
Okay. Councillor Scotchy.
First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor McGregor as well as Mayor Caniff for their help in regards to this motion. It's much appreciative, and I'd really like to say thank you to all the people that's reached out to all of Council in regards to this initiative. And I really want to say thanks. I see some of the folks back there from the Lower Thames Conservation Authority who have been integral in this motion, using them as a soundboard, seeing if this is possible to facilitate, and seeing what we can do from a municipality to improve our footprint. So just in this meeting, I've listened to everybody, use words like, we have an environmental planner now, environmental lens. We're talking about climate action, and it's really nice to talk about those things. This isn't a beautiful, new, smooth road or a nice bridge or something that we can, utilize every day, but it's something that is intangible to our community. And I really think, I hope everybody supports this report. I do want to say that this is just asking for a report, but I want to make sure that everyone knows is that when the staff comes back with these initiatives, I really hope it's something that we are going to. It's not just going to come back on a piece of paper or a digital copy that we're just going to look at it as a report. I want tangibles that we are going to look as a partnership to develop, and I think the motion kind of speaks for itself, and I think that yeah.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Worship. The only question I have is the timing of the report through you to administration. That's 2 weeks from now, and one of those days is a holiday. So I'm all in favor of the report. I just want to make sure that we're going to get it back and it'll be fulsome.
I know that this report, Your Worship, will cross several departments, but for my department, certainly we need a lot more time than that. I would suggest something more like January would be appropriate. And I know there's other departments. Mr. T-Bear might speak for IES's involvement as well.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Yes, I do agree with the January timeframe as a recommendation, just to have something all-inclusive as well as be prepared for budget purposes as well.
Councillor Scotchy, are you okay with pushing it out to January?
Well, is it possible to speak with the Lower Thames in regards to the timeline for the initiative, as they've been very integral in this communication process, to see if that's going to allow us to get into the time for the spring planting? Is it possible to?
Sure. Certainly, I'll give a little leeway there just to clarify this important issue.
Just because I know in conversation that the timing is essential to getting this, this on the cusp right away.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Randall Van Wagner, and I'm a manager of Conservation Lands and Services with the Lower Thames. To answer your question, yeah, there is a lot of factors and other partners to consider in this. We have to look at timing of tree planting as well. Usually these activities occur in September of the fall or in spring, April, May. So January, I think, is a suitable time frame for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, for letting me, for allowing me to answer that question.
Thank you.
So, Your Worship, I think I still have the floor.
Yes, you do.
I don't know whether you want me to. I wanted to make sure when we got a report back that we didn't then adjourn it to another date so we had all the information when we got it back. So I don't know whether I need to amend the motion by actually putting a different date on it or whether the mover is simply content that it be, I don't know, second week or third week.
The clerk's looking up the dates in January, just to have one very shortly.
January the 13th.
So January 13th, does that meet your requirements, Mr. Norton? And all right, Councillor Scotch, are you okay with amending it to January 13th then?
Yes, if that's what it's going to take, then that's something that I would be, it'd be sufficient. Thank you.
Seconder, you okay with that? Okay. Councillor Solomon, you still have the floor? Anything else?
Don't want it any longer, thank
you. Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Sakachi mentioned that we probably all received a number of emails and texts from people who were wanting us to support this particular motion. And I know from those that I received, there were a number of really good suggestions to incorporate into the review. And I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of gather up all of the comments that have come to us and feed them to administration as they're writing the report, because I think that we could have made a few tweaks to the motion here tonight, but rather than spending a whole lot of time, if we can just gather up all of those comments that we received and make sure that administration has them.
Thank you, Your Worship. If Council would be happy enough to send that in my direction, I'll make sure that it gets filtered to the appropriate department. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 16, Finance, Budget, and Information Technology Services.
Item 16A, Extension of Services, Municipal Property Tax Software.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'll be happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor C. McGregor.
I'd be happy to second that. Thanks.
Any questions? Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was a reference in the report to collaboration with other municipalities, and I was just wondering whether there might be an opportunity for some revenue generation if we were to perhaps take on some of the responsibilities for back office for other municipalities in the immediate area, and whether this might be something that could be explored.
Thank you, through the mayor. We definitely would always look at those opportunities, but we first would want to get the system installed and know that we have all the kinks out of it before we were looking for expansion. So that would be a consideration several years down the road.
Councillor Latimer.
Through the mayor, thank you. Mr. Quinton, it says that you're using the remaining $493,823 to assist in covering the expense incurred to hire 3 staff, including a project manager for 18 months to develop and implement the property tax solution and tax modernization. Can you tell me that the project managers for 18 months, are all 3 staff for 18 months, and what level for $500,000 per se?
So it would be all 3 staff positions for 18 months. The grades of the positions, I don't have them exactly on me, but I could provide it to you by email.
Is that, can you tell me what these 3 people are going to be doing that our current staff could not already assist with? Or I'm struggling with 3 people.
So I think a part of projects like this is people working on these projects on the side of their desk. They're not successful. So in this case, we want to fully dedicate the resources of 3 people. So it'll be a project manager and some IT support staff and probably a finance person to implement the project and ensure that it's working within 18 months and we're able to use it.
So that would be including training for our staff, right?
Yes.
Also.
Yes,
yeah. And you couldn't use a co-op student for
not for this. This is highly technical and highly sophisticated work.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Councillor Finn.
Councillor Latimer stole my question.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. What are the chances of these 3 people staying a lot longer than 18 months? Because that'll be a question people will have, right? Like, are they staff, or are they going to be employees of the municipality or employees of a company that we consult out?
So they will be employees of the municipality. We'll post the positions, and it could either be an existing internal employee that we would second to the project, or we would hire somebody externally, bring them in for 18 months. We've only approved funding for 18 months, so we don't anticipate it to go beyond that. If it did, under unforeseen circumstances, we would have to come back to council.
Oh, it wouldn't come back to council. It wouldn't just be
no, we wouldn't
sunk in
just extend
base
it beyond
budget.
18
So
months.
okay, that's fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Scotchy.
Just the determination of how many employees. So this isn't something that could be done with 2 employees. It has to be utilized with 3 employees. Just because the expense of it just seems like it's a large expense. And is it something that we're going to be able to see benefits from externally to the public? Is this something that the public's actually going to see benefits from?
Not only benefits, but we are at high risk of our existing software is from the 1980s, and it's a DOS-based system. It's at high risk for failure. So this is a very important and strategic project for the municipality, and we've reviewed this with our existing project management staff, our IT staff, to determine the appropriate positions, and we've settled on the 3 identified in this report, and that's what we believe we need for this project to be successful.
That's good, sir. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I got the idea of the 18 months, and at the end of 18 months, the people are done. But then I heard about the secondment, and I'm a little confused about that. So if you second from another department, then it creates a gap in another area, I trust. So how do you handle that? Do you hire to that position for 18 months?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, that's correct. We would backfill that position with an 18-month contract, and at the end of that 18 months, the employee, their contract would be done, and they'd be no longer working.
I'm impressed. When I heard that it's a DOS-backed system from the 1980s, that reminds me of years and years ago when I had to do that on great big boat anchors of computers. So, yeah, it's good to get rid of that. But the problem is it's always hard to get a handle around here as a councillor and as a citizen on how many employees there are here, because they become FTEs and we backfill and we do all sorts of things. And for simple, try to figure out as a councillor and as the people we report to, which is the public, it's really tough to get a handle on how many there are and from time to time and compare it to how big our population is or how small our population is. That's not your problem. But at some point, I'll probably bring a motion to try and figure that out so we can get a data point and keep moving. We used to get that on a regular basis. I haven't seen it in a while. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 16B, motion by Councillor Solomon regarding Arena Complex financial updates.
Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Your Worship. My motion is with respect to the financial updates of the proposed arena complex, and I move that 1, administration report to council and we should have a date at the December 2nd, 2019 meeting, reporting all funds spent or committed to be spent for any matter whatsoever relating to the proposed arena complex. And 2, that administration update council on these expenditures quarterly from that date on, and administration report monthly on the status of any provincial and federal grants to Chatham-Kent for this proposal. That's my motion.
Councillor C. McGregor.
I'll second that.
Councillor Solomon. Floor is yours.
It's just transparency. It's.
Okay.
I can't imagine anybody be against it.
Okay. Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I have maybe a friendly amendment. I don't know if it has to be an amendment or not, but when it comes back on the 2nd, if we could actually see the application that we approved a couple weeks ago, because we really haven't seen it, and for that to include, there's got to be drawings, right? Because there was a financial figure associated with, because we've seen Tecumseh's drawings, very nice, but I think it'd be probably logical for us if we could actually see the application, if that's okay. Thank you.
See no other questions?
I don't have a problem with adding that as a paragraph 4 to bring that back. It's just more transparency.
Mr. Shropshire, that's a given, right? That council will see the report before we file it? And
By all means, we'll share the report. It's under that category. Be careful what you wish for. The report's large, but we'll have this report submitted on or about November the 12th. That's the deadline for the report. Anytime after that, we're happy to share that report, and that's fine. We can share that with council in times that you can actually ask questions in December.
Oh, okay, great. Because yeah, I knew the deadline was sometime soon. And then will you share the application with us so that we see? Because you said report application is synonymous in this case.
I'm not sure I understood the question. So the actual application process has been posted online for some time. So the completion of that is basically us submitting a number of documents to support or to answer the questions that are in the application process. But I'll work with Mr. Kelly and Mr. Turner to make sure that the entire application process, that by all means, can share it with council.
Okay, and I understand we don't likely would even bother reading a lot of the documentation that's financial, and I just like to see what we're actually applying for, as far as what does it look like, what does it entail, how many change rooms are there, the sort of stuff people are asking, because don't really have an answer other than a 2,000-seat arena sports complex. So if we could just get the detail of what we've applied for, and if we're successful, we'll know what we're getting, and if we're not successful, we'll know what we didn't get. So just it would make our lives a lot easier to answer simple questions of, are there change rooms on both sides or not? So that kind of stuff. But
happy to.
But all the Mike Turner stuff, no, not so much. Like that's probably not.
There's others here I know will be riveted by Mr. Turner's application as well. So we'll make sure you get the full package.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Item 17, closed session reports. Councillor B. McGregor.
Closed session report, Monday, November 4th, 2019. Council directed administration on personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with regard to Blenheim Landfill Liaison Committee appointment, and personal matter about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with regard to appointment of Integrity Commissioner, closed meeting investigator.
Motion to accept, Councillor Bondi, second by Councillor Finn. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 18, approval of communication items. Councillor Foss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move.
Seconded by Councillor Kirkwood-White. Any items to be pulled out? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 19, non-agenda business. Councillor Harrigan.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some questions through you to Mr. Tiber regarding the Talbot Trail closure near Wheatley. So first, I just wanted to comment, council would have received the Golders report today around the slope of the Talbot Trail and a whole bunch of details around that. So thank you to the CK staff for sending that. That was something they had committed to do back in the summertime during a community meeting. We anticipate, or I anticipate, that there will be a number of questions about that report, and then also some questions about what some of the short-term proposed actions may be. And I know that's coming to council in December, but is there an opportunity for us to bring some staff out to the community, specifically of Wheatley, to have a conversation addressing the resident concerns or answering questions that they might have about that report?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I would like an opportunity to discuss that there with Thomas when he does return, our general manager, and I will definitely report back to you at the beginning of next week about some times and some commitments to getting out to Wheatley to do that.
Okay, great. Secondly, there was some confusion around home ownership and property value. So I'm just wondering if it can be clarified. If a homeowner believes their property value has decreased because of a road closure, who should they turn to get that clarified? Is it MPAC or the municipality? Because I've had some residents saying they called MPAC, MPAC told them to call the municipality, they called the municipality told them to call MPAC.
Thank you, through Mayor Caniff. So they're to call MPAC if there's something that's structurally happened to their property and file a 357. However, a road closure, which may or may not affect the general property values in the area, will be reflected in future years as houses begin to sell in the area. So there might not be any immediate relief just because a road is, for now, temporarily closed until a decision is made. It may take some time for that to sift through the MPAC system as far as what sell values in the area are happening and stuff. So there's no immediate relief just because a road temporarily closes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I believe staff had communicated something that I would say was slightly different through me to residents in the past. So thank you for that. And then finally, for those who don't know, there is a detour from Talbot Trail all the way down to, Middle Line, which is a paved road area, but that's quite a distance, 15 minutes or so out of the way. So many residents have been using the second concession, and Mark and I have received, or Councillor Oche and I have received significant feedback that now that road is in dire shape and needing of attention. Local residents are wondering what the winter maintenance plans are going to be for that road, and will it change, recognizing that, yes, it's a gravel road, but now the traffic rate of that road is more like that of Talbot Trail.
Thank you, Mayor Kemp. So yes, I spoke with our Director of Public Works there just before this meeting to confirm. They are very actively monitoring this road. In fact, it was just re-graveled and resurfaced there a few days ago. So they are being very active out there with maintaining that road. They have confirmed that they will perform winter maintenance in accordance with the municipal minimum maintenance standards for that road, which is based on traffic volumes. So we are committed to going out and doing some traffic counts out there, putting out the rubber tubes to start getting some up-to-date numbers for our public works team so that they can quantify the winter maintenance requirements out there for the season.
Okay, thank you. There's quite a number of people in that area who are very concerned about things like safety, right? Nobody wants to have an accident in their front yard on a gravel road in the wintertime, so appreciate the attention drawn to that.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I was going to save this, but since the Talbot Trail conversation has broken out, I was going to bring it up. I got a message about a week ago from a business on Talbot Trail. This one's actually out, well, it's in Cedar Springs. And and other businesses along there are very much concerned about the traffic diversion, especially as it relates to where we're diverting or encouraging people to avoid Highway 3, which is actually right in Blenheim. So she sent me this. She wanted to know why we're diverting off of 3 in Blenheim. And this is a quote: "All my tourists are being sent down Middle Line, a ton of places they could be diverted. Most of the traffic they see now are big trucks. They're curious as to why we couldn't divert at, say, the Merlin Side Road, as an example." The real key one is here, and I've heard this from a number of smaller businesses. This is hurting us. There has to be a better way, especially if this is a multi-year project, and it looks like it's going to be. We won't survive. And I just want to leave that with not only economic development and tourism, but as well as our infrastructure and engineering. We are hurting and possibly ending the livelihoods of numerous businesses all along Talbot Trail.
Councillor Scacchi.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I just wanted to kind of follow up with Councillor Harrigan's comments. So, in regarding a different area, Erie Shore Drive, I was down there last weekend on a Saturday, and it was relatively nice. And to talk about winter maintenance, I do not see at all, from a common sense perspective, how it's going to be possible down there to maintain that road in the wintertime. We already know that the blocks that are up there are creating a bottleneck effect for the water. When we start to include freezing and sub-zero temperatures, with multiple, the waves are going to increase in November and December. I just don't know how we're going to do that there. Have you guys looked at something to make sure that we can safely go there and maintain those access points?
Thank you, Mayor Camp. So our Public Works team have confirmed, in addition to for Erie Shore Drive, that they will be adjusting their operations accordingly to accommodate the blocks on Erie Shore Drive right now, and the current temporary conditions that are out there for winter control purposes. So they said that they are able to maintain winter control throughout the season, again in accordance with the MMS, and make sure that public safety, of course, is number one most kind of crucial aspect with maintaining anything out there.
So on a relatively calm day, this is just my perspective. On a relatively calm day, when I was driving there, I happened to pass 5 people in different intervals that literally had to get off the road, and you have to basically stop if they're on their bike or on their roads, or if they're walking, they're walking their dogs. So in the wintertime, if we cannot direct the snow to the block side because it's going to impact the integrity of the blocks and the clay structure. So the only alternative is going to be to direct that snowfall to the resident side and the driveways. And it's really concerning to me just because, and I understand that, why these things are in place because, that road might not exist if they're not there, but there is a lot of uncertainty about the number of spillways. And I'm not an engineer, I'm not questioning, but it is my duty to ensure I advocate for the residents. And there is a lot of concern about the amount of spillways and the fact of what is going to happen in the wintertime. And I'm just saying it from my own perspective being down there. I really think that there is a major risk out there in the wintertime. There's not much space for us for anybody to travel. I know it's going to be probably localized for the entire winter, but it is very scary out there. And I don't think I just really hope that we are looking at other steps to look at a more permanent solution out there, because these blocks are just they're needed, but they're a major safety inconvenience. So.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chris, sorry for pounding on you here. You're getting it all tonight during non-agenda. I know we were out and scraped the second concession and the third concession, I think Thursday or Friday afternoon. But I already had complaints Saturday morning on we're not scraping low enough, so the potholes are staying there. We're filling them in, but they're going out as soon as somebody rides over them. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. I know, and I'm not blaming you or any of your employees either, because I know it's pretty hard to keep a dirt road up when we got as many tomato trucks and everything running down it as well. But can we scrape lower, or did we only scrape a certain depth because of how wet it was at the time?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I can't comment on the Public Works operation for road grading. That's more well-suited for them to answer that question. So I can have Ryan Brown, our Director, again, of Public Works, follow up to answer that exact question about why the depth that we go, the type of reapplication that we apply, and the lifts associated with that. But I will confirm again that our Public Works team are actively out monitoring this road. If they do see a pothole, they won't trigger an entire road grading operation. They'll make sure to address the individual potholes, especially if it's a recent one right after a road grading opportunity. So they are very active out there in trying to maintain this road in its current condition.
Well, I definitely know they're out there and they're trying their best, but I'm just wondering if we can go a little bit lower, and if you could maybe speak to the gentleman for me and let me know, or have him contact me, because it was right after the scraping, and it just didn't seem to go as deep as I thought it would go deep with all the potholes that were still there. I know we just closed it down maybe a month ago or so and put on a lot of gravel, and that's pretty much gone. I don't know, that didn't seem to be the answer, but anyways, whatever you can do would be great. Thank you, Chris. And then I'm gonna go to a lighter subject. November 29th in Tilbury is our parade night. It will be ending at Memorial Park and Odette Park, and we'll be having a Tilbury, that's actually called Tilbury Lions Christmas Light Festival. So we'll have the park lit up. At the moment, we have about 6,000 lights, but we're working on more all the time. So if you'd like to come out and have a good night, we got Lions there with free hot chocolate, popcorn, and Timbits. So hopefully we'll see some of you out there, and you'll hear this again in 2 weeks. Thanks.
Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just touching back on Councillor Sakatchi's the snow removal winter maintenance plan for Erie Shore Drive. Can we have Public Works staff possibly meet with those permanent property owners that are so concerned about how to manage the logistics of snow removal? And because if you're not going to plow it towards the cement, you got to plow it into their driveways. Is anyone going to pick that stuff up? That's what they want to know, Chris. Because it is a safety concern. It will be even more so if you have water coming over that stuff on an ongoing basis. So I'm just asking if that could possibly be considered to meet with those particular property owners.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Either through means of a media release or letter, potentially, or we could find maybe a more effective means of getting the information and communication out to the public, to the residents there.
They just need to know what you are intending to do so that they can pick up the ramifications. And if they have concerns, they can let us know, and then we can maybe enable something to happen to maybe ease that situation.
Okay. Happy to, again, discuss that one there with the team.
That'd be great. I have 4 other things. I apologize, but it is with regard to Erie Shore Drive. We were down there this past weekend. With regard to those orders to remedy an unsafe building, there were 8 issued, and the property owners were wondering if there was a house number map indicating where these 8 properties were in relevance to each other on Erie Shore Drive, and or their proximity to any of the mitigation structures installed, example, the drain chutes. Is anybody here that could answer that question?
Your Worship, that would be my area. It's the building department issues the orders to comply. You're looking
they just want a map
for a map of which properties.
Not who lives there, but just the number so they can see where the concerns are.
Let me check on that and see if there's any privacy interests and whether we can disclose that. I'm thinking of that through. Maybe I can take this opportunity, Your Worship, to remind Council our interim control bylaw that we've had in place for 2 years is expiring this month. We have already been requested a lot of building permits for people that want to begin construction. Administration has recommended to you that we do not allow reconstruction of the properties, and Council's directed us to actually allow reconstruction. So we're going to have some construction happening, and I think we're putting a lot of pressure on our engineering team to manage snow, to manage a road that could collapse when you've got ice and waves coming over roofs of houses. This is a very difficult, dangerous situation, and I'm worried about the construction that's going to be happening down there this winter and into the spring.
I could respond. The property owners did know they were getting very nervous. They had not heard anything with regard to some of their permit applications. And they were wondering, too, thank you for Councillor Harrigan and Gord for clarifying who they contacted, the MPAC, and asked for a structural damage file 357. Is that what?
Thank you, Mayor. Can I have
357?
If they don't plan on rebuilding and they plan on demolishing the structure, then MPAC will remove the value of the structure off the property when it's demolished. But if they're got a building permit in or rebuilding next month, there will be no change in taxation in the assessment from MPAC. They can, so they're welcome to approach MPAC and explain their situation if perhaps they're not rebuilding the deck or something, or if there's something that they're removing from the property, then they should for sure file a 357 because they've removed a structure. If there was a shed in the back that's not there anymore that had assessment dollars attached to it,
or a garage.
But as far as the main cottage, if their plan is to rebuild, then they're actually probably adding value to the property.
Well, that's debatable, what's happening out there right now. I had one property owner say to me, I feel like the municipality is just waiting for each of us to be pinged off one by one, waiting for each of us to decide to cut our losses and leave, or wait until our place just falls into the lake. These individuals are living in limbo, so it's important that they know what their options are. It's a nightmare that's heartbreaking, and their financial circumstances are quickly becoming dire. The majority of the property owners are not asking for a handout. They're merely looking for options. A number of them are asking for consideration to petition through the Provincial Drainage Act for identification through engineering investigation of any viable, sustainable resolution options with associated costs and funding opportunities. Obviously, this necessitates collaboration between all three levels of government and associated environmental stewardship bodies, and that all takes time. And what many of these individuals are feeling they no longer have it, that they have to make a decision before they hear the recommendations at the end of November, much before March comes, where our shoreline study recommendations are talked about. So I'm asking tonight, because I was asked this, is there any reason why the property owners cannot, at their own cost, immediately proceed to petition under the Drainage Act? And if this formal process is initiated at the property owner's cost, please remind me and to explain to those listening who may not be familiar with the Drainage Act, what, if any, financial or any other obligations does this place on the municipality and all taxpayers?
So, Your Worship, we don't have Tim Dick, who is the expert, our Director of Drainage, here tonight, but I've looked into this matter extensively as the lawyer. So this is what happened 20 years ago, is there was a review from under the Drainage Act to determine if we could add this to the drainage assessment. The report came back at a very high price that people turned down. Now, my understanding, and again, perhaps Chris can comment on this, is that the projected fix from an engineering perspective would be much more expensive, if at all even possible. So that can be initiated. A resident could initiate that process. The process would involve hiring an engineer, and an engineering company would go ahead and develop a report to try to find a fix to this.
And that's at their cost, correct? They at the property owner's cost. They're prepared to foot this. They do know there is a cost, but I am concerned, and I'm sure other taxpayers in Chatham-Kent are too as well. Does it cost everybody else in Chatham-Kent? Or if these property owners wish to proceed and they are just looking for options, and they don't know, but they're not engineers. But they have talked with different engineering bodies and lawyers, and they seem to feel that may be a viable option. So they wanted to know, well, can we proceed, or do we have to go through something through the municipality?
So, Your Worship, what happened is, let's say they petitioned and the engineering cost was, just the engineering cost was $1 million or $2 million. And let's say the proposed solution is going to be $30 to $50 million.
And they pass it down, right?
And then at the end of it, what happened last time is 20 years ago, is the citizens said no to the proposal. They didn't want it. So then the engineering costs were eaten by the municipality. So the rest of the municipality did end up paying and absorbing that cost. In this instance, we'd be in the same situation unless they were willing to pay for it up front. So it's a tough situation financially. Yeah. And I think the challenge becomes, I mean, even if they say they're going to pay for it, are they going to pay for it, or are they going to come forward in a year from now and say, well, it was $1 million, we can't afford it? So, I mean, that's a decision for council to make.
I agree. But I also I'm bringing this forward because I was asked to by some property owners out at Erie Shore Drive. And I think it's important for the rest of Chatham-Kent. As Councillor Thompson, sorry, Trevor, has already stated, right now that road is closed, and this afternoon, earlier today, it was again a war zone down there with water flying over the cottages, across the road, and it's not a situation that's going to get better, and they just are asking, whatever we're going to do, just tell them so they can make their decisions. And that's what they're asking. They're between a rock and a hard place. We know it, they know it, and they just, if confirmation is we like you just said, it's too much money, then say so, and then we go forward. But that's what they're asking. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just in response to that, with no decision being made yet on whether to the options of retreat or whatever options that are part of the shoreline study that you're not approving till March, my recommendation to anyone would be not to spend a dime out there until your decision is made. Because why would they spend money on drainage works or rebuilding their living room or anything other than securing the property until council makes its decision in March on what the plan is?
Thank you, Gord.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's been a lot of social media chatter lately about a little tiny home village that was built out west for the veterans. And I thought perhaps to wait to make this pronouncement, but I'm going to do it tonight just as a bit of a heads up. Given the need for more affordable housing in Chatham-Kent and the fact that several individuals from our community recently attended the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Conference in Toronto on the weekend, I'm hoping to have something more concrete to report before the end of the year about the development of a small, not necessarily tiny, home community to help address the issue of affordable home ownership here in Chatham-Kent. I've been working very closely with a planning group over the past 8 months, and while we have a few more T's to cross and I's to dot, before I can be a little more specific, at this point I just want to let everybody know that we're looking to hear from potential investors, community partners, as well as those who might be listening tonight who might like to be future residents of this new community, which, by the way, will be on a bus route and which will consist of dozens of smaller homes in the 550 to 750 square foot range. So I'm going to leave it there. Not quite ready to share any additional information at this point, but I want to get the message out that we are attempting to address the issue of affordable housing in this community.
Councillor Solomon.
I hope this is the final one because you've got your horseshoe. Mine's a question, and it's a very quick one, through your worship to Chris. Part of it's very complimentary, I think. I don't know whether he's going to take a compliment or not. But the road work that was done on the south side of the Charing Cross Road overpass, which seems to recently have been completed, is very smooth and very well done. Now, my question is, those roads, the south side has not been done. And that road took a lot of beating as a result of the province of Ontario shutting down the Highway 40 during their overpass construction. So my first question is, has the province contributed to, because I can remember when this all came about, if our roads got beat up because of their plans, they were to contribute. So the first question is, have they contributed to the construction work that was very well done south of the 401 overpass on Charing Cross Road? And the second is, it's equally, if not worse, on the 4 lanes that are on the north side. And when's that going to be done? And are they contributing?
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So we are still awaiting confirmation feedback from the MTO, from the province, about any kind of contribution, recognizing that Charing Cross was heavily utilized during that detour route and when the Highway 40 was shut down. So there is constant communication happening. As of right now, they have not contributed any financial dollars to support that project. We are still waiting for communication back from the MTO. We had to proceed with that project just because of the condition of the road and the safety of the road for the public. So we had to proceed with the project regardless, and we're hopeful that we're going to get some confirmation back from the province for any kind of support for that project, and as well as the next phase of that project, which as of right now is slated for next year, pending budget, to do the north half of Charing Cross. I can't recall to what exact limits, but it's a fair portion of it north of the 401.
Right. You don't know whether it takes it all the way to Indian Creek Road or someplace short of that.
I can't recall if it's right all the way to Indian Creek or just the first road shy of it. I can confirm the project limits that we will be proposing, but it will be brought forward. The type of operation that was used out there was something called our cold in place recycling program. So we're recommending the same program for that next stretch of road, which will be separated and isolated out, and a separate report for you, hopefully in the early new year.
Well, even not only was I complimenting you, you got a trumpet applause over there too, it appears. So thank you, through your worship, Chris. Thank you for that. It really, I don't know how, if you could keep informing us on this, because perhaps we have to contact our MPPs at some point in time, because those roads clearly were damaged as a result of the province of Ontario's project at Highway 40.
Councillor Hall. Very quickly, Mayor Caniff, I don't think Mr. Tiber has had enough airtime tonight, so a quick question to him. Could you give us an update on the Lord Selkirk Bridge construction project in Wallaceburg? I know November 12th was kind of the end date that was targeted, and could you also mention in your comments just what's being taken to prepare for the Remembrance Day services in Wallaceburg? Because I know the base of I know there's been some consultation that you had told us about a couple weeks ago, but can you just mention that as well? Because I know the construction site is right at the cenotaph, so can you just update the project for us and mention that as well?
Thank you, Mayor Camp, happily. So as of right now, they are painting the balance of the bridge. All this is slated to be done by the end of the week. Following that, they're going to be starting moving into site cleanup and preparation for Remembrance Day. So getting everything all clear so that the site will be completely vacated and ready to accommodate the Remembrance Day celebrations at that location. As soon as that is done, the contractor will continue with the site cleanup and preparation. The bridge is still on track to be open to traffic and one side for pedestrian purposes on November the 13th. That is the date that has been confirmed as of today. Immediately following the opening, pending weather or any substantial emergencies that happen out there, but as of right now, the 13th is still the holding date. Following that, about approximately 2 to 3 weeks after the opening of the bridge, they will be continuing with the site cleanup, doing some minor details with the bridge and kind of addressing some of the deficiencies that were out there. Also, they're doing proceeding with something called bridge balancing, testing and commissioning. So it's going to be kind of opening and closing the bridge, make sure all the mechanical and electrical components are working adequately, and then completion of some of the electrical and mechanical equipment as well.
So just again, November 13th, vehicles will be able to start driving over the Lord Selkirk Bridge?
As of right now, that is the last date that we received from the contractor confirmation, yes.
Thank you.
I just have a couple quick things to add here. The first one, Councillor Oche was talking about a lot of this stuff going on for the holidays in Tilbury. Just want to note that in the next little while, listen for Home for the Holidays. It's a program that's coming out. A number of organizations are coming together to light up CK and do a number of things. So next little while, I'm pretty excited that they're going to be announcing that, and it's going to be, I think communities right across Chatham-Kent are going to be doing more during the holidays, and with the target that this is year one and will get bigger and bigger every year. Second thing is I sent out an email last week asking for anybody interested in working with me to fill in a case of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. I sit on the board of that, and at times I'm unable to call in or to attend, and I was looking for someone to work with me to fill in when I couldn't. So as it stands right now, there's only one individual that volunteered, Councillor Latimer, and if there's no one else interested, then we just have a quick vote to put Councillor Latimer as to work with me on that. So is there anybody going once, going twice, anybody else interested in doing that? Seeing none, then can I get a motion to put Councillor Latimer, Councillor Crew?
I'll move that Councillor Latimer sit on said committee.
Okay, Councillor Finn?
Happy to second that one.
Any any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Sakachi? Thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Sorry, Councillor Kirkwood-White?
Thank you. I know we're trying to break a record for adjournment, but I just thought of another question I'd like to ask Ms. Hoffman, if you don't mind. Several months ago, we passed a motion to look into the incorporation of 311 to replace 360-1998, and I'm just wondering how progress is being made on connecting with neighboring communities about that.
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. It's coming along very well. Ms. Segrin-Swayze has been working on that report to come back just to give you an update, but really the short version of that is that all of the players that we needed to get on board have come on board, save and except two, but they've committed to do so. We're just still in the process of trying to make that happen. So hopefully very soon, fingers crossed, we'll be able to come back with some good news to say we're ready to go.
Councillor Latimer?
Thank you, through the Mayor. Real quick, please remember South Kent Town Hall meeting, last one for 2019, will be tomorrow evening, Tuesday, November the 5th, 7 p.m. at North Buxton, the museum. The Mayor is attending. I'm hoping we have somebody from Public Works, where they need to confirm with us, or one of us, who's coming, and someone from with regard to winter maintenance and grading and gravel for follow-up from last meeting.
Okay, number 20, reading the bylaw, first and second reading. Councillor Solomon, seconded by Councillor Hall. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Third and final reading. Councillor Finn, seconded by Councillor Oche. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Resolution of Council in closed session and adjournment.
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, November 18th, 2019, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
Seconded by Councillor Oche. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.